The MMA world was rocked recently when news broke out that Brian Johnson, better known in internet culture and fitness circles as Liver King, had been arrested following a series of disturbing incidents. The most headline-grabbing among them was an alleged threat against none other than Joe Rogan, the legendary UFC commentator and podcast host whose influence on the sport is immeasurable. Liver King's arrest sent shockwaves through the MMA community, sparking a tidal wave of reactions ranging from shock and disappointment to outright outrage and disbelief. The man who had built a massive social media empire, touting primal lifestyle and fitness, was suddenly embroiled in serious legal trouble, and his clash with Joe Rogan only intensified the drama. The news quickly dominated fight forums, social media feeds, and MMA news outlets worldwide. Fans, fighters, analysts, and commentators scrambled to make sense of what had happened and what it meant for the broader MMA landscape. To understand the full scope of the situation, it's necessary to unpack the events that led up to this unprecedented incident. Brian Johnson's rise as Liver King was meteoric. With his charismatic persona and extreme lifestyle, he had millions of followers, preaching the virtues of ancestral living, eating raw organs, embracing hard physical challenges, and shunning modern comforts. His philosophy resonated with many fighters who sought to optimize their health and performance, and Liver King himself was no stranger to the world of combat sports, often promoting strength and resilience that bordered on the mythic. However, in recent months, tension between Liver King and the MMA establishment began to surface. There were rumors of personal disagreements, including a rumored falling out with Joe Rogan, who had previously supported some of Liver King's content and message. What exactly sparked the animosity is unclear, but leaked messages and videos suggested escalating hostility. The tipping point came when Liver King allegedly threatened Joe Rogan in a now infamous video that surfaced on social media. The video featured Liver King confronting Rogan with menacing language and a clear intent to intimidate. The UFC commentator, known for his calm yet assertive demeanor, responded with measured words, but the threat could not be ignored. Within days, authorities acted, arresting Liver King on charges related to harassment and threats. The MMA community was quick to respond. Fighters who had admired Liver King's message were conflicted, torn between disappointment and shock at the news. Others were vocal in condemning his actions, calling for accountability. Joe Rogan, for his part, remained stoic. Through a statement on his podcast, he expressed gratitude for the support he received and emphasized the importance of safety and respect within the MMA world. He also reflected on how this incident reminded him of the darker side of fame and influence, the pressures and conflicts that can erupt unexpectedly. Amidst this turmoil, the UFC remained focused on its rapidly evolving fight landscape. UFC 317 was just around the corner, and all eyes were on the highly anticipated lightweight title fight between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira. The build-up to this fight had already generated massive hype, with Topuria's rise to the top of the division and Oliveira's reputation as one of the most dangerous finishers in UFC history. Analysts debated the matchup endlessly. Some argued that Topuria's striking power and grappling defense would give him the edge, while others insisted Oliveira's submission prowess and experience would prevail. The fight was seen as a true 50-50 battle, a test of skill, heart, and strategy. As the MMA community processed the Liver King saga, discussions shifted back to the sport itself. Many fans used the controversy as a reminder of the need for mental health awareness and professional support for fighters and public figures who often face immense pressure. Meanwhile, upcoming UFC events promise to keep the focus on the octagon. The UFC's return to Shanghai, China, on August 23rd was a significant milestone, symbolizing the sport's global expansion. The main event featured Johnny Walker facing Zhang Minyang, a bout between two aggressive finishers with bright futures in the light heavyweight division. Johnny Walker, known for his explosive style and highlight reel knockouts, was looking to solidify his place among the top contenders. Zhang Minyang, riding an incredible 12-fight winning streak with all finishes in the first round, represented a rising threat and a showcase of Chinese MMA talent. The co-main event was equally compelling. Brian Ortega, the Brazilian jiu-jitsu specialist and former featherweight title challenger, was set to face Aljamain Sterling, the bantamweight champion with a crafty grappling and striking arsenal. Sterling had defended his belt multiple times and was eager to prove his dominance, while Ortega was hungry for a title shot and a return to the top dot. In interviews leading up to the Shanghai card, both fighters exuded confidence and respect for their opponents. Sterling spoke about the long-awaited fight with Ortega and emphasized his motivation to reclaim the championship. Ortega similarly expressed excitement and focused determination, revealing insights into their shared history and training experiences. The broader narrative of the UFC at this time was shaped by transitions and uncertainties. Jon Jones's recent retirement announcement left a vacuum at light heavyweight, while Conor McGregor's ongoing absence and public controversies continued to spark debate about the state of star power in the sport. Meanwhile, veterans like Islam Makhachev, now firmly entrenched at welterweight, were charting new paths. Makhachev had confirmed plans to stay at 170 pounds, setting his sights on fresh challenges and big fights. His move up from lightweight was strategic and calculated, seeking to avoid stagnation and capitalize on opportunities. The lightweight title scene, with Topuria and Oliveira at the forefront, exemplified the sport's intense competition and evolving talent pool. The stakes were high, and the fights were becoming increasingly technical and brutal. Fighters, coaches, and commentators shared their predictions and analyses widely, often referencing training footage, past performances, and stylistic matchups. The UFC's global reach meant that fans from Brazil to Georgia, Russia to the United States were united in their anticipation. Returning to the Liver King episode, the MMA community's response also highlighted deeper issues within the sport. Discussions emerged about the responsibilities of influencers who intersect with MMA culture, the impact of social media on fighter mental health, and the blurred lines between entertainment and reality. Some fighters publicly shared their own struggles with mental health and pressure, calling for greater awareness and support. Prominent voices advocated for the UFC and related organizations to invest more in mental health resources, counseling, and conflict resolution at the same time. Others warned against glorifying violence outside the cage, emphasizing that MMA spirit was rooted in respect, discipline, and sportsmanship. Liver King's threats and subsequent arrest were seen as a cautionary tale of how fame and ego could spiral out of control. As the UFC prepared for its upcoming events, the organization reaffirmed its commitment to safety, professionalism, and growth. New stars were emerging, legends were passing the torch, and the sport was expanding into new markets and demographics. The Shanghai card, featuring Walker, Minyang, Ortega, and Sterling, was poised to deliver unforgettable moments. Meanwhile, the lightweight title bout between Topuria and Oliveira promised fireworks and a potential new champion. The fight community's energy was palpable. Discussions on forums and social media ranged from technical breakdowns of fight styles to speculation about future matchups. Fantasy fight cards were created and debated with passion. In this environment, Liver King's fall from grace was a sobering reminder of the fine line between hero worship and accountability. The MMA world had always been a place of resilience and redemption, but it also demanded responsibility from its heroes. Joe Rogan's role in this saga underscored his influence not only as a commentator, but as a cultural icon within MMA. His calm handling of the situation, despite personal threats, was widely praised and reinforced his reputation for integrity. Meanwhile, Ilia Topuria, focused on his octagon career, remained an example of discipline and determination. His willingness to engage with media candidly and speak about his goals and challenges resonated with fans and fighters alike. Charles Oliveira, equally focused, continued to showcase why he was one of the most feared and respected finishers in UFC history. His strategy and fight IQ were key factors in his ongoing success. The dynamic between these fighters represented the evolving nature of MMA, a blend of raw power, refined technique, and mental toughness. In the days leading up to UFC 317 training, camps were in full swing, media days packed with interviews and face-offs, and fans eagerly awaited fight night. As for Liver King, the legal process was unfolding, and his future remained uncertain. The incident sparked wider conversations about the intersection of MMA, fitness culture, and social media influence. Ultimately, the MMA community was reminded that while fighters are warriors inside the cage, they are also human beings outside. With all the complexities and vulnerabilities that come with fame and pressure, this episode would likely be studied and discussed for years to come. A cautionary tale about the consequences of actions, the importance of mental health, and the enduring spirit of the fight game. In the meantime, as the news of Liver King's arrest spread like wildfire through the MMA community, the reactions were immediate and intense. Social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, and the specialized MMA forums became flooded with opinions, theories, and heated debates. Fans were torn between disbelief and concern, while fighters themselves took to their channels to weigh in on the unfolding drama. Veteran fighters expressed their shock, highlighting the contrast between Liver King's public persona as a health and strength icon and the serious nature of the threats he allegedly made. Fighters like Michael Bisping and Chael Sonnen commented on the dangers of letting ego and fame spiral out of control, emphasizing the importance of accountability in the sport and beyond. Bisping, a former UFC middleweight champion known for his sharp wit and candor, pointed out that the MMA community had always been a close-knit family, where respect and professionalism were paramount. "We fight hard inside the cage, but outside, there's a code," he remarked in an Instagram live session. "When someone crosses the line like this, it hurts everyone who loves this sport." Chael Sonnen, a former title challenger and master of verbal sparring, highlighted the irony of the situation. "Here's a guy who built a brand on discipline and primal strength, and yet he lost control in the most public way possible," Sonnen said on his podcast. "It's a reminder that no matter how tough you are physically, mental strength and maturity are what keep you grounded." The MMA media also dissected the incident in great detail. Journalists analyzed the legal ramifications, the impact on Liver King's career, and the ripple effects on his followers and sponsors. Some speculated about the role of social media in escalating the confrontation, noting how quickly messages and videos can spread and magnify conflicts. Meanwhile, fans debated Liver King's motivations. Some argued that the primal lifestyle message he promoted was being overshadowed by personal issues, while others cautioned against jumping to conclusions without knowing the full story. Regardless, the consensus was clear. Threats against a figure as influential and respected as Joe Rogan could not be taken lightly. Amidst the storm, Joe Rogan himself remained mostly silent publicly, though insiders revealed that he was cooperating fully with authorities and leaning on his support network. His measured response to the incident only earned him more respect, as he refrained from fueling the fire and instead focused on his role as a commentator and mentor. As the MMA world was processing these events, attention naturally shifted back to the fights. The UFC was gearing up for a blockbuster summer slate, and UFC 317 was shaping up to be a pivotal card. The lightweight title fight between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira was one of the most talked about matchups. Ilia, the Georgian phenom, had rapidly risen through the ranks with a mix of devastating, striking, and solid grappling. He was known for his precision and pressure, and fans admired his relentless style. Charles Oliveira, on the other hand, carried the weight of being the most prolific submission artist in UFC history. His ability to finish fights, often in dramatic fashion, had earned him a reputation as one of the most dangerous lightweights ever. Oliveira's journey from a tough childhood in Brazil to UFC champion was inspirational, and his charisma made him a fan favorite. In the weeks leading up to UFC 317, both fighters engaged in respectful trash talk and media interviews, feeding the hype without crossing into hostility. Analysts debated every aspect, from Oliveira's jiu-jitsu wizardry to Topuria's striking evolution. Betting odds fluctuated as new information about training camps and injury reports surfaced. Interestingly, the lingering question about Topuria's move up to lightweight remained a hot topic. Many had expected the weight cut to be easier for him than at featherweight, but recent reports suggested he was still struggling with waterweight and the demands of cutting. A leaked video from a training camp visit showed Ilia admitting that this was one of his toughest camps yet, adding a layer of intrigue and concern that this revelation sparked discussion about the often overlooked toll that weight cutting takes on fighters. Experts weighed in on the science of dehydration, muscle recovery, and how extreme weight cuts could impact performance and health. Fans voiced empathy for fighters who endured these grueling processes in pursuit of greatness. Meanwhile, the bantamweight division was buzzing with the upcoming showdown between Brian Ortega and Aljamain Sterling at the Shanghai card. Ortega, known as THREATENING, was eager to reclaim his spot among the elite after suffering setbacks, while Sterling was motivated to defend his belt against a tough challenger. Their history, intertwined with mutual respect and rivalry, added emotional stakes to the fight. Sterling talked openly about their shared training history and how much he respected Ortega's heart and skill. Ortega, in turn, remained focused on his goal of becoming champion, acknowledging the challenge ahead beyond the fights themselves. Other key figures in the MMA world made headlines. Tom Aspinall addressed rumors of a super fight against Alex Pereira. a matchup fans dreamed about given Pereira's devastating striking and Aspinall's rising heavyweight power. Both men downplayed the talk for now, focusing on current goals, Pereira's light heavyweight title rematch against Magomed Ankalaev, and Aspinall's own career trajectory. In the middle of all this, Islam Makhachev, one of the sport's rising stars, confirmed his commitment to the welterweight division. His strategic move up from lightweight was carefully planned, and he expressed genuine interest in facing top contenders like Kamaru Usman. Makhachev's calm confidence and team-oriented approach made him a respected figure in the locker room. Back in the lightweight division, pundits speculated about the future after UFC 317. If Ilia Topuria claimed the belt, a mega fight with Paddy Pimblett could follow, potentially becoming one of the biggest fights in UFC history. The rivalry between Ilia and Paddy, rooted in personality clashes and fanbase battles, promised fireworks beyond the cage. Charles Oliveira, regardless of the outcome, was seen as a cornerstone of the division's legacy. His technical prowess and finishing ability ensured that every fight he stepped into was must-watch. The juxtaposition of Liver King's fall from grace with the rising stars in anticipated fights created a complex, layered narrative in the MMA world. It reminded fans that while the sport thrives on competition and drama inside the cage, it also depends on professionalism, respect, and personal responsibility outside of it. MMA insiders reflected on how the community must balance passion with caution, supporting fighters not just as athletes but as people. The importance of mental health resources, mentorship, and conflict management was discussed in podcasts, panels, and gyms. For the casual fan, the Liver King saga was a sobering story. For the dedicated followers of the sport, it was a call to action, a reminder that the octagon is sacred ground, and the behavior outside it matters just as much as fight night at UFC 317 approached. Excitement and anticipation reached fever pitch. Fans from around the globe made travel plans, posted predictions, and eagerly awaited every win and press conference moment. The fighters themselves remained focused, some sharing glimpses of their final preparations on social media, others keeping everything tightly under wraps. The tension, the adrenaline, and the dreams of glory filled the air in the end. The MMA community found itself at a crossroads, inspired by the promise of new champions and thrilling bouts, yet reminded of the fragile line between greatness and downfall. The Liver King incident was a dark chapter, but the sport's enduring spirit shone through in the resolve of its fighters, the loyalty of its fans, and the integrity of its leaders. As the bright lights of the UFC cage illuminated the night, the world watched, ready for new stories of courage, skill, and triumph to unfold. The MMA world never sleeps, and just as the dust began to settle around Liver King's arrest, the conversation quickly pivoted back to the fighters and the fights that bring fans together week after week. One of the central figures dominating these discussions was Ilia Topuria, a name rapidly becoming synonymous with skill, precision, and relentless hunger. Ilia's journey through the UFC's featherweight division was marked by spectacular finishes, gritty performances, and a rapidly growing fanbase that admired both his physical talents and his warrior mentality. Yet, as his fight with Charles Oliveira approached, questions about his preparedness and mindset lingered. The leaked training camp video where Ilia admitted to struggling with weight cut issues was a rare glimpse behind the curtain for a fighter known for his toughness. Hearing him openly admit, "I've been better, a lot better," struck a chord. It humanized him, but also raised eyebrows about how the move up to lightweight was truly affecting him. In the lead-up to UFC 317, media outlets worked overtime to analyze every aspect of the fight. Analysts debated whether Oliveira's experience would neutralize Ilia's power and aggression, or if Topuria's striking evolution would outpace the veteran's game plan. Among the most vocal was former UFC middleweight champion Michael Bisping, who, beyond commenting on Liver King's saga, shared a detailed breakdown of the fight dynamics. Bisping pointed out that Oliveira's tendency to fight aggressively, often trading blows at close quarters, could be a double-edged sword. Charles is brilliant on the ground, no question, but he does sometimes come in straight lines, leaving himself open. Bisping explained, Ilia is sharp and precise. If he can keep Oliveira at bay and time his counters, he's got a real shot at a knockout. Bisping also noted the strategic possibilities, suggesting that Ilia might choose to weather the early storm by playing safe, perhaps even giving up some ground to study Oliveira's timing and patterns before unleashing his power. It's a chess match, Bisping said. Who blinks first? Charles Oliveira, meanwhile, remained his usual confident self in interviews, refusing to underestimate Ilya, but emphasizing his own grappling pedigree and fight IQ. Oliveira reminded fans and media alike that he was the most prolific submission finisher in UFC history, and that his jiu-jitsu was a weapon no opponent could take lightly. Henry Cejudo, former two-division UFC champion and one of the most respected voices in MMA, weighed in as well. He critiqued Oliveira's habit of standing and trading despite his elite grappling skills. Charles has world-class wrestling and jiu-jitsu, Cejudo remarked during a recent podcast. He doesn't always use it the smartest way. If he tries to strike with Ilya for too long, he's going to get caught. Ilya's hunting for that body-to-head combo that finishes fights. The strategic debate was intense, with MMA Psycho, a popular analyst, breaking down Oliveira's takedowns and clinch work. He questioned whether Oliveira would adjust his game plan to bring the fight to the mat or continue the stand-up battle. Oliveira's takedowns are solid, but Ilya's takedown defense is strong. Coming from a Greco-Roman wrestling background, it could come down to who executes their plan better. Meanwhile, social media buzz around the fight reached fever. Pitch memes, fan predictions, and highlight reels of both fighters flooded Instagram and Twitter. The hashtag 2PURIA Oliveira hashtag trended multiple times, as the fight promised fireworks in a division hungry for new stars and unforgettable moments. Beyond the fight, the larger MMA ecosystem buzzed with activity. The UFC's August 23rd card in Shanghai was a focal point, not just for the exciting matchups, but for what it represented: the sport's continued growth into global markets and the opportunity for new stars to emerge. Johnny Walker versus Zhang Minyang was one of the marquee bouts. Johnny Walker, known for his unorthodox style and explosive finishes, faced the rising Chinese prospect Minyang, who was undefeated with an impressive streak of first-round finishes. This fight was widely seen as a potential preview of the future of the light heavyweight division, a clash of styles and generations. The co-main event, featuring Brian Ortega versus Aljamain Sterling, was equally compelling. Ortega, a master of Brazilian jiu-jitsu and known for his unyielding heart, had been chasing a return to title contention. Sterling, the bantamweight champion with a crafty mix of wrestling and striking, was looking to cement his legacy with another defense. Both fighters acknowledged the personal and professional significance of the matchup. Sterling, in particular, spoke about his history with Ortega and his motivation to prove he was the division's top dog. "We've got history," Sterling said in a recent interview. "I respect Ortega, but I want that belt around my waist for a long time." Ortega, known for his humility and work ethic, kept his focus on preparation, refusing to get distracted by the spotlight. "I'm here to fight and win," he stated bluntly. "Everything else is noise." On the sidelines of these events, whispers of potential megafights and superfights filled the air. Tom Aspinall, the rising heavyweight star, addressed rumors of a showdown with former light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira. Both men tempered expectations, emphasizing that unfinished business, particularly Pereira's upcoming rematch with Magomed Ankalaev, had to be settled before any new chapters could be written. Fans eagerly speculated on the possibility of a double champ scenario if Pereira moved up to heavyweight after reclaiming his belt, facing Aspinall in a blockbuster matchup that could define the era. Back in the lightweight division, Islam Makhachev's move up to welterweight was a significant storyline. The Dagestani star, a protege of legendary coach Abdulmanap, was quickly proving his skills at 170 pounds. His calm confidence and consistent performances made him a fan favorite and a feared contender. Makhachev, speaking candidly in recent interviews, emphasized the importance of staying patient and focused. "I'm here to fight the best and prove myself," he said. "Weight class doesn't matter if you have skill and heart." The MMA community embraced Makhachev's rise, seeing him as a bridge between the sport's past and future. Many compared his grappling dominance and fight IQ to that of his mentor, Khabib, Nurmagomedov. As UFC 317 approached, the atmosphere was electric. Fans, fighters, and media all sensed that the lightweight title fight between Topuria and Oliveira could be a pivotal moment, a changing of the guard or a reaffirmation of Oliveira's elite status. The juxtaposition of this excitement with the recent Liver King saga underscored the complex reality of MMA. The sport is as much about the human stories, struggles, redemption, failure, and triumph as it is about punches thrown and submissions locked. For Ilia Topuria, the fight represented not just a title opportunity, but a test of resilience amid personal and physical challenges. For Shockley's Oliveira, it was a chance to prove that his legacy as a finisher and champion was far from over. As the UFC countdown clock ticked down, the community watched with bated breath. The octagon awaited, the fighters prepared, and the world stood ready for another chapter in the ever-evolving saga of mixed martial arts. As the final days before UFC 317 ticked away, the focus in the MMA world sharpened on not just the fights themselves, but the stories behind them, the fighters' mental states, training regimens, and personal battles that often go unseen. Topueria's camp, despite the earlier revelations about his difficult weight cut, was doubling down on preparation. Sources close to the Georgian fighter revealed that his coaches were focused on optimizing his recovery and ensuring he entered the cage in peak condition. The team was reportedly emphasizing nutrition, hydration, and rest, knowing that the transition to lightweight could be a double-edged sword. Topuria himself remained somewhat guarded in interviews, choosing his words carefully. "I've had tough camps before," he said. "This is just another challenge. When I step into the octagon, I leave everything behind. I'm ready for whoever they put in front of me." His humility and focus earned him respect from fans and analysts alike, many of whom saw in him the makings of a future UFC legend. Charles Oliveira, meanwhile, was riding a wave of momentum and confidence. The Brazilian icon's recent fights had showcased his evolved striking, blending explosiveness with technique, making him a more complete threat. His team, led by legendary coach Rafael Cordeiro, was putting the finishing touches on a strategy designed to exploit any hesitation. From Puria. Oliveira was also open about the psychological aspect of the fight. "This is more than just a title fight," he said in a rare, candid moment. "It's about proving who I am as a fighter and a person. I respect Ilya, but I will do whatever it takes to keep my belt." The MMA community took notice of this mental toughness, with many commentators emphasizing how a fighter's mindset often makes the difference on fight night. On social media, the hype was palpable. Fan-made videos highlighting Topuria's striking and Oliveira's submissions went viral, generating millions of views. Discussions about possible outcomes filled forums, from technical breakdowns to passionate debates about who deserved the belt more. Meanwhile, a less expected subplot was unfolding behind the scenes: the rivalry between Ilia Topuria and Paddy Pimblett. Both men, rising stars from different backgrounds and with very different fighting styles, had clashed on social media and in interviews for months. Their personal rivalry, while not yet culminating in a fight, had become a fan-favorite storyline, promising an explosive matchup should Topuria secure the lightweight title. Topuria's camp confirmed their interest in facing Pimblett, who was rapidly gaining notoriety for his charismatic personality and aggressive fighting style. Pimblett, known for his crowd-pleasing finishes and trash-talking bravado, relished the prospect of fighting Ilia, viewing it as a chance to claim legitimacy on a global stage. This potential fight was already generating buzz as one of the UFC's most anticipated matchups, promising both action and drama. Beyond these headline fights, the MMA community was abuzz with discussions about the sport's evolution, the rise of new stars, the blend of disciplines, and the increasing sophistication of training and fight strategies. Veteran commentators reflected on how the sport had changed since the early days. The importance of well-rounded skills, psychological preparation, and even social media presence were now as crucial as physical prowess. At the same time, issues like fighter wellness, weight cutting, dangers, and career longevity were becoming central themes in MMA discourse. The leaked video of Topuria's struggles with weight cut was cited frequently as an example of the need for reforms and better support for athletes. As UFC 317 approached, the promotion itself ramped up marketing efforts, highlighting the card as one of the biggest and most exciting of the year. Press conferences were packed with energy, and the fighters brought intensity and focus, aware that this event could change their careers forever. The Liver King saga, while a dark cloud, also prompted the UFC community to emphasize responsibility and professionalism. Fighters spoke out about the pressures of fame and the importance of managing personal conduct. Joe Rogan, after initially remaining silent, released a carefully worded statement encouraging respect and calm. His stature in the MMA world lent weight to the message, reminding fans and fighters alike that the sport thrived on passion but required discipline. In gyms around the world, fighters of all levels prepared with renewed purpose, inspired by the stories of perseverance and the drama unfolding at the highest levels. As Fight Week descended, The MMA world braced itself for the moment when all speculation would end, when Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira would step into the cage. The crowd would roar, and the fight for the lightweight crown would begin. The outcome was anyone's guess, but one thing was certain. UFC 317 would be remembered not just for the fights, but for the stories of grit, ambition, and the relentless pursuit of greatness that defined the sport of mixed martial arts. The countdown to UFC 317 intensified as fight week kicked into high gear. Fighters were finalizing their preparations. Media engagements swirled around every corner, and fans worldwide eagerly awaited what promised to be a landmark event. Among the most compelling storylines was the contrasting journeys of Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira, to fighters whose paths to the lightweight title had been marked by grit, talent, and moments of adversity. Ilia Topuria's rise had been meteoric, yet grounded. Born in Spain to Georgian parents, Topuria's multicultural background had shaped both his fighting style and his mindset. From a young age, he trained in Greco-Roman wrestling, a foundation that would later underpin his powerful takedown defense and clinch work. Transitioning to MMA, he quickly added striking skills that combined precision with devastating power, making him a formidable opponent at featherweight. Topuria's career, however, wasn't without bumps. Early setbacks, including a tough loss and battles with weight management, tested his resolve. Yet, each obstacle seemed to fuel his determination rather than diminish it. His move up to lightweight was strategic, aimed at preserving his health and maximizing performance. Yet, as leaked footage revealed, the transition was proving challenging. Fans sympathized with his candid admission of weight cut struggles. Realizing that even the toughest fighters face battles behind the scenes, Charles Oliveira's story, by contrast, was one of redemption and evolution. From humble beginnings in Brazil, Oliveira had fought his way through the ranks, known initially for his ferocious submissions and relentless pressure. However, his early UFC tenure was marked by inconsistency and missed opportunities, with injuries and questionable performances clouding his potential. Over recent years, Oliveira reinvented himself. His striking improved dramatically, adding a new dimension to his arsenal. Under the tutelage of Rafael Cordeiro, Oliveira became a more complete fighter, blending his world-class Brazilian jiu-jitsu with effective stand-up tactics. This transformation culminated in winning the lightweight title, fulfilling a dream that many believed was years in the making. Oliveira's record-setting submission, finishes, and resilience in high-pressure fights earned him the respect of peers and fans alike. Yet, his aggressive style meant that he often engaged in wild exchanges, making fights unpredictable and thrilling as the two fighters prepared to collide. The MMA community debated what the fight's outcome might mean for the lightweight division and the sport as a whole. Some analysts believed that Topuria's youth, power, and tactical approach made him the future, a new champion who could dominate for years. Others argued that Oliveira's experience and well-rounded skill set would prove decisive. Fan forums lit up with spirited debates. Social media was flooded with highlight reels, GIFs, and fight predictions. Betting lines fluctuated as new information about the fighters' camps emerged. Meanwhile, the UFC capitalized on the buzz, promoting the fight as a battle of styles and generations. Promotional material highlighted Topuria's relentless pressure and Oliveira's deadly submission game, promising fans a thrilling contest. Other key UFC fights added layers of intrigue to the card. Johnny Walker's matchup against Zhang Minyang was viewed as a potential light heavyweight shakeup. Walker's unpredictability and knockout power contrasted with Minyang's undefeated streak and explosive starts. Many saw this fight as a preview of who might be the division's next major contender. Brian Ortega versus Aljamain Sterling was another marquee fight, drawing intense interest. Ortega's resurgence after injuries and Sterling's status as a dominant bantamweight champion set the stage for a fight that promised technical brilliance and high stakes. Off the cage, the MMA community grappled with larger issues. Liver King's recent arrest for threatening Joe Rogan stirred conversations about fighter conduct, mental health, and the pressures of fame. Many fighters and commentators spoke out, advocating for support systems to help athletes navigate the complexities of celebrity and competition. Joe Rogan himself, while not immediately commenting publicly, was a frequent topic in discussions. His influence on MMA culture, through commentary and his popular podcast, had shaped generations of fans and fighters. The dramatic exchanges between Rogan and Liver King underscored how personal and intense MMA rivalries could become. The UFC's global reach was also a hot topic. The upcoming Shanghai card symbolized the organization's efforts to expand into new markets and cultivate local stars. Fighters like Zhang Minyang embodied this new wave of talent, promising to bring fresh energy to the sport. As fight night approached, the fighters entered their final camp days with a mix of focus and intensity. Media day events revealed glimpses of their personalities. Topuaria's calm confidence, Oliveira's fierce determination, Walker's unpredictability, and Sterling's poise. Behind the scenes, coaches and corner teams fine-tuned strategies, knowing that in MMA, the smallest details could change the course of a fight. For fans, UFC 317 represented more than just an event. It was a convergence of stories of rising stars, veteran champions, personal redemption, and the unrelenting pursuit of greatness. When the cage doors finally closed and the lights focused on the fighters, the world would witness not just combat, but the culmination of years of sacrifice, training, and dreams. And as always, MMA would remind us why it captivates millions. The raw emotion, the human drama, and the unyielding spirit of those willing to fight for glory.